Translation. Because of the impact on the ground of the legs of the demons and the demigods, the wheels of the chariots, particles of dust flew violently into the sky, made a dust cloud that covered all directions of the outer space as far as the sun. But when the particles of the dust were followed by drops of blood, being sprinkled all over the space, the dust cloud could no longer float in the sky. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The cloud of dust covered the entire horizon, and when the drops of blood sprayed up as far as the sun, the dust cloud could no longer float in the sky. A point to be observed here in that although the blood is seated to have reached the sun, it is not said to have reached the moon. Apparently, therefore, as stated elsewhere in Srimad Bhagavatam, the sun, not the moon, is the planet nearest to the earth. We have already discussed this point in many places. The sun is first, then the moon, then Mars, Jupiter, and so on. Then the sun is supposed to be 93 million miles above the surface of the earth. And from the Srimad Bhagavatam, we understand that the moon is 1,600,000 million miles away from the sun. Therefore, the distance between the earth and the moon would be around 95 million miles. So if the space capsule were traveling at the speed of 18,000 miles per hour, how could it reach the moon in 4 days? At that speed, going to the moon would take at least 7 months. That the space capsule on the moon exertion has reached the moon in 4 days is therefore impossible. The other translations haven't been read, have they? So this is 26. Surrounding Lord Indra, the king of heaven, were the demigods seated on various types of vehicles and decorated with the flags and weapons. Present among them were Agni, Vayu, Varuna, and other rulers of various planets, along with their associates. The demigods Apajita fought with Numicha, and the two Ashwina Kumara brothers fought with the Vrihashpa. The sun god fought with 100 sons of Maharaj Bali, headed by Bana, and the moon god fought with Rahu. The demigod controlling air fought with Paluma, and Sambhu and Shimbu fought the supremely powerful material energy, Durga Devi, who is called Bhadra Kali. O Maharaj Parikshit, suppressive enemies, Aniridhama, Lord Shiva fought with Jamba, and Vibhashu fought with Maharishva. Ilva, along with his brother Vitapati, fought the sons of Lord Brahma. Durmashra fought with Cupid, the demons Uttaka, with Murtaka, demigoddess, Brihashpati with Sukra Acharya, and Sanshi Satan fought with Narakesharu. The Murats fought with Nivrakavach, and Vashu fought with Kalyakaya demon. Vishvadeva demigods fought with Palamo demons, and Rudras fought with the Krohadvasha demons, who were victims of anger. All of these demigods and demons assembled on the battlefield with the fighting spirit and attacked one another with great strength. All of them desiring victory, they fought in pairs, hitting one another severely with sharpened arrows, swords, and laces. They severed one another's heads using weapons like bashundis, chakras, clubs, ritas, patis, shaktis, ulamakas, prashnas, prashavandas, nishmritas, laces, parigas, mandagaras, and bihantapals. The elephants, horses, chariots, infantry soldiers, and various kinds of carriers, along with their riders, were slashed to pieces. The arms, thighs, necks, and legs of the soldiers were severed, and their flags, bows, armor, and ornaments were torn apart. In today's verse, because of the impact on the ground of the legs of the demons and the demigods and the wheels of the chariots, particle of dust flew violently into the sky and made a dust cloud that covered all directions of the outer space as far as the sun. But when the particles of dust were followed by drops of blood being sprinkled all over the space, the dust could The dust cloud could no longer float in the sky. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanam Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisaisa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. I take the permission of everyone so I can say something. Vanchakalpatrubhishya kripa sindhubhye cha patito pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So the description we just read is quite horrific, with very vivid description of what's happening. So when we read this description, what's the first thing that goes in our mind? What's the first thing that conjures up? Anyone? Yeah, there seems to be a lot of battle going on in the kingdom of the demigods. What other things, what other thoughts comes up when we read this? Yeah? That's right. That's a very interesting subject. Again, we'll speak with that if time permits later on. Anything else when we read about this? Of course, there's so many different things. Anyone else? What comes to my kind of mind when I was given this verse was the word conflict. So, from time immemorial, there's always been conflict between persons, different ideas. And what is this conflict based on? What do you say this conflict is based on between the demigods and the demons? False ego? Anything else? This conflict, there are obviously many different reasons, is based on envy of what the demigods have. Generally, if you study history, when people invade other countries, like the demons are trying to invade the demigods, it's because they're envious of what someone else has. So this is something that's been there from time immemorial. If somebody has something more or something better or better land or more riches, then the nature is that you want to go and acquire it. The nature is that you want to go and achieve that and have it for yourself. And if that land is more prosperous, if that land is more nicer, then the nature is you want to acquire it for yourself. So this is the mentality of the demons, that when they see something else, they want to keep it. Just like we have the story of Duryodhana. When the Pandavas, when they were given a piece of land to rule, Maharaj Dhritarashtra gave them an all wasteland. He said, you can rule over there. So with the help of Krishna, Vishwakarma, that same place, which was once just a wild jungle, was turned into a wondrous city known as Indraprastha. This place was very, very spectacular, very, very unique city, that when Duryodhana came over there, they could not believe the splendor of Indraprastha. Hastinapur in itself was very, very glorious. Hastina was also such a powerful city as well. In fact, Hastinapur was the seat, the power of Bharatvarsha at that time. And all the other kings, they bowed at the kings of Hastinapur. But when Duryodhana went and saw this wondrous city of Indraprastha, he became envious. And he was burning with such envy that when he met his friends, Karna and Shakuni, he wanted to have that. He wanted to try and have that city of Indraprastha. Of course, he could not go in battle with the Pandavas. The Pandavas were very powerful at that time. They had Krishna on their side. They just formed a new alliance with King Draupad. So before, the Pandavas weren't so powerful. So now it was not easy for them to challenge the might of the Pandavas. So this envy was burning at the heart of Duryodhana. The fact that he wanted this Indraprastha for himself. And as a result, his friend Shakuni devised a method to try and win this city of Indraprastha. So this is the nature of the demons, that they will go into conflict, they will go into battle, they will go into such suffering just to acquire. And that's what history is built upon. If you study history, that's what the Romans did. They went and invaded other parts of countries because they want to acquire that land. That's what Alexander the Great did. He wanted to acquire the Persian Empire because the Persian Empire was considered very, very powerful. They're very, very sophisticated. They're very, very advanced in their knowledge about things. So Alexander wanted this. So this is the nature of the demons, that they will always want what someone else has. So unless we learn a lesson from here, how we can try and curb this envy or this greed to acquire someone else's property, then we'll never be satisfied in life. And it's easier to say that we can be free from this, but actually this envious or greed quality is very, very strong. It's very, very powerful. And it goes very, very deep-rooted. In fact, this quality goes way, way back in our own conflict with Krishna. The fact that the living entity sees that Krishna is getting all the attention, that Krishna is the center, but with our minute ego, we also want some attention. We also like some attention. We also like to be glorified or praised. So the idea in the spiritual world, only Krishna is glorified. Only Krishna gets the center of all attraction. So the moment we want to be the center, then we have to leave the spiritual world. And that's why we come on this planet. So with that quality within ourselves, that we have this envy, what somebody else has. And when we take birth in this world, unless we learn how to curb it, that will be the governing factor in our lives. And that's how history has built itself upon itself, by wanting or being envious of what the neighbors have. So that's what's going on here at the moment. This battle that's taking place between the demons and the demigods, it's all about acquisition. It's all about having the control of the place. So that's what Hiranyakashipu also did. He wanted to acquire the heavens. He wanted to acquire Indraloka for himself. So that is the nature of the demons. They want to keep these things for themselves. They want to try and exploit things for themselves. They want to try and enjoy things for themselves. And that is the very existence or the nature of why man is also trying to go to another planet, as explained here in the verse. Because they want to try and exploit other parts of God's creation. They want to try and exploit the moon planet. It's not enough for them what's going on in this world. It's not enough for them what's here in this world. They have to try and make great endeavors to try and see if they can try and conquer other places. Places which might be beyond their reach. Places that they cannot achieve or go. But somehow or another, they will still try with their tiny little minds, with their tiny little ideas to try and conquer. Even though there's so much suffering on this planet, there's so much pain on this planet, still they rather waste their money and make exercise by going to the moon planet. So how is it possible that we can try and stop this conflict which is going on? The way to stop this conflict is to try and see others' properties as their own and not want it for oneself. If you can just let things be, whoever's things are, and not want to be envious of them and not want it, then that can make life very, very easy. It's much easier said than done. Because this conflict, it's also there within us. It's not always about land as well. It's not all about just getting wealth. It's also about wanting to have some kind of position, or also wanting to have some kind of prestige. So these are some of the qualities that the demoniac persons, they go about. Envy, greed, prestige. And this, in turn, creates the conflict. If you can imagine, if Duryodhana wasn't envious of Maharaj Yudhishthira, if Bali Maharaj wasn't envious of what the demigods had, then there wouldn't be any need for this kind of conflict. There won't be any need to go and invade another person's property. So we can try and learn from what the scriptures teach us from this stories of the Puranas in our own life, in our own experience. To a greater or lesser degree, we also have certain conflicts. We also struggle with lust, with anger, with greed, with envy. So these things can be counteracted by compassion. These things can be counteracted by forgiveness. These things can be counteracted by giving. When we give something, when we forgive someone, it's a powerful experience. It's not always easy, because in our own day-to-day life, we always encounter so many different things, so many conflicts in our own life. And sometimes we take these conflicts to such a degree that sometimes it burns away at us. Sometimes it burns away at the core of our own very soul. And we all, to a certain degree, experience this in our life. So the best way to try and get rid of these conflicts which may be there is to try and have the qualities which are there that the Brahman has, which is the forgiveness, which is to try and see the good in what others have. The nature is to try and always find faults in others. The nature is to always try and see what mistakes other people have. In the Bhagavatam, there's one verse that says that when someone who is in a superior position, when he comes in contact with an inferior position or a junior, the tendency is to push them down. The tendency is to try and knock them so that you would feel yourself good. And then if you come in a situation where you are equal with someone, what kind of situation arises from that? Excuse me? Boasting, competition. You're trying to outdo each other. So if you're kind of on an equal level, you try and outdo each other, trying to prove that you're the better. So if you're in a so-called superior position, you try and push others down so you can push yourself up. If you're in a equal position, the idea is that you enter into a competition so that you can try and elevate yourself. And if you're in an inferior position or a junior position, what's the tendency when there's someone superior? Envy. To try and bring them down, to try and topple them, so that you can be there in that position. The nature is that we always want, not everyone, but the nature is that we always want the best for ourselves. The nature is that we always want to try and be at the top. Once Srila Prabhupada was in Japan, and he was having a meeting with some of the company leaders over there, and they were discussing the Bhagavad Gita over there. And after the meeting was over, the servant who was there, he was just clearing up things, and then he was collecting all these business cards from the people who had the meeting. So then Srila Prabhupada turned to him and he asked him, what is the goal of your life? Then at this time he had collected all the different business cards. Then he shuffled these cards around and then he showed the cards to Prabhupada. And in the front of the card, what do you think it said? Huh? No, he was just a servant. He was the one who was the tea wala. So what do you think it said on the business card? Huh? Joker, no. It said the president. So that was his ambition. So he wanted to be the president. He wanted to be in the same position as what the president was. But our philosophy is totally the opposite. What's our philosophy? Sorry? Trinadapi Sunichena. That's our philosophy. That if we actually abide by this particular verse, then actually we can actually really resolve the conflicts that might be there. If we actually live by the principle of Trinadapi Sunichena, then actually whatever experiences we might have in our life which are related to conflicts, we can actually go forward. And how is that? If you take some of these qualities that this verse is trying to give us, the tree, for example, is very, very tolerant. So no matter what happens to the tree never objects. If the tree is cut down, if the tree is abused in any way, the tree never retaliates. It just accepts whatever is happening to it. So this quality of tolerance helps us in our dealing with conflict. Because the idea is, if we can tolerate what the other person is trying to do to us, then we can better ourselves. And the other qualities which are there in the Trinadapi is we should always think ourselves lower than the straw in the street. Because conflicts happen because we want to be at the top. We want to be the king of the heaven. We want to have what Indra has. But if we abide by the law of want to be lower than the blade of grass, because the blade of grass is very, very lowly. People step on it. People don't even recognize it. If you even look at it in the front lawn, there's thousands of blades of grass. You can't distinguish one from the other. They all merge as one. So in this way, if we take this principle that Lord Chaitanya taught us, the third verse, in fact, Lord Chaitanya has told us we have to wear this verse with us. Then by abiding by this law, then we don't need to go into a conflict. Then we don't need to go into an argument with someone. There might be some differences. There might be some difficulties. There might be different issues. But then we have to make sure that we don't let our false ego come in and get the better of us. Because this false ego, again, is also another very, very powerful force that can also be very, very detrimental in our spiritual life. Because the false ego is a little bit like a serpent. And what happens if you step on a serpent? It gets angry, or it raises its hood up, or it attacks. And I know from my own kind of also personal experience that if I get affected by false ego, then this in turn allows all the other kind of qualities to come and affect me. So false ego can be gotten rid of by trying to understand that we are Gopi, Bhatta, Pada, Kamalaya, Dasu, Anudasu, Anudasu. And it's a tall order. It's not easy. It's easy for me to sit over here and say that. It's easy for me to philosophize it. It's easy for me to just read it. But really, if you think about it, in our day-to-day life, in our day-to-day experience with devotees, do we really put that into our life? Do we really put those things in context in dealing with someone? Or is it just like another kind of a show bottle kind of a thing? So these are just a few of some of the thoughts I just wanted to share with you. And then once we try and get rid of these kind of qualities, then it becomes very, very easy for us to practice spiritual life. Because spiritual life is the reason why we're here. Spiritual life is the main reason we are listening to Srimad Bhagavatam. But unless we free ourselves from conflicts, we free ourselves from envy, false ego, then spiritual life can become very, very difficult. And sometimes people struggle in spiritual life. Sometimes people find it difficult to chant. Sometimes people find it difficult to even sit in Srimad Bhagavatam class. And the reason why is because sometimes these qualities are harboring there in our hearts. They're there. And they come up in the most unexpected times. They come up in the most unexpected situations. And the more we learn how to have compassion, how to have goodness, how to have forgiveness, then those other qualities, they will not allow us to be ruled. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So we'll stop here. If there's any question, comments.